This isn't just another celebrity interview gone wrong. This is a masterclass in how quickly things can spiral out of control when respect goes out the window. Before we dive into this incredible exchange, make sure you hit that subscribe button and let me know in the comments what you think really triggered this heated moment. The studio lights were blazing as Mark Wahlberg settled into his chair on the View set, adjusting his jacket with the easy confidence of someone who had done countless interviews. He was there to promote his latest film, a heartfelt drama about second chances that had been getting incredible reviews. The other hosts, Whoopi Goldberg, Sarah Haynes, and the rest of the panel, had greeted him warmly during the commercial break. But there was something different about Joy Behar's demeanor. She sat at the far end of the table, shuffling through her notes with an intensity that seemed out of place for what was supposed to be a light-hearted promotional interview. "Welcome back to The View," Whoopi said as they came back from commercial. "We're here with Mark Wahlberg, talking about his new movie and, well, I'm sure we'll get into a lot more than that." Mark smiled and nodded. "Thanks for having me. It's always great to be here." Joy leaned forward slightly, her pen tapping against her note cards. "Mark, before we talk about the movie, I think we need to address something that's been on a lot of people's minds lately." The shift in tone was immediate and unmistakable. Mark's smile faltered slightly as he turned to face her. "Sure, what's that?" "Your past," Joy said bluntly. "You've built this image as this reformed bad boy. This guy who's turned his life around. But let's be honest about what you really were back then. You weren't just some kid making mistakes." The other hosts exchanged glances. This wasn't in the pre-interview notes. Sarah Haynes shifted uncomfortably in her chair, and Whoopi's expression grew concerned. Mark took a deep breath, his hands clasping together on the table. "Joy, I've been open about my past. I've never hidden from it. I made serious mistakes as a young man, and I've spent decades trying to make amends and be better." "Make amends?" Joy's voice rose slightly. "You committed hate crimes, Mark. Actual hate crimes. And now you're sitting here in your expensive suit, making millions of dollars, being celebrated as this great guy. Don't you think there's something fundamentally wrong with that picture?" The studio fell silent, except for the hum of the cameras. Mark's jaw tightened, and for a moment, it looked like he might get up and walk off the set. Instead, he leaned back in his chair, his voice carefully controlled. "I was charged with assault, Joy, not hate crimes. But you're right, what I did was wrong. It was terrible. And I've never tried to excuse it. I was a kid from a rough neighborhood who made bad choices, and I've worked every day since then to be a better person." Joy wasn't backing down. She flipped through her cards with theatrical precision. "A kid making bad choices? You were 17 when you attacked that Vietnamese man. 17. You called him racial slurs, you beat him with a stick, you permanently injured him. That's not a kid making bad choices. That's a young man committing violent acts motivated by hatred." The tension in the studio was palpable. The audience was dead silent, sensing that something was going very wrong. Whoopi tried to interject. "Maybe we should." "No." Joy cut her off, her finger pointing across the table at Mark. "I'm tired of watching Hollywood rehabilitate people like this. I'm tired of watching society just forgive and forget when the victims never get that luxury. You served 45 days in jail, Mark. 45 days. That man still has vision problems because of what you did to him." Mark's composure was cracking. His face had flushed red, and his hands were now clenched into fists on the table. "You want to talk about that man? His name is Johnny Trin, and I met with him. We've spoken. He's forgiven me, Joy. He's moved on with his life. And we have a relationship now." "Oh, how convenient." Joy shot back, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "The rich movie star meets with his victim, and suddenly everything's okay? Did you pay him off? Is that how you bought his forgiveness?" That was the line. Mark's chair scraped against the floor as he shifted forward, his voice rising for the first time. "Are you kidding me right now? Are you actually sitting there accusing me of paying off a victim?" "That's not what happened, and you know it." Joy smirked, clearly enjoying the fact that she was getting under his skin. "I don't know anything except what I see. I see a man who committed racist violence, spent less than 2 months in jail, and then became one of the biggest movie stars in the world. I see Hollywood rewarding bad behavior, and I see you sitting here acting like you're some kind of inspiration story. You know what I see? Mark's voice was getting louder, his Boston accent becoming more pronounced as his anger built. I see someone who's so desperate to score political points that she's willing to attack someone on live television without knowing the facts. You want to talk about what I was? Fine. I was a punk kid from Dorchester who thought violence was the answer to everything. I was angry, I was stupid, and I hurt people. But you know what else I was? I was a product of my environment, just trying to survive in a world that didn't give kids like me many options. Joy leaned back, crossing her arms with satisfaction. Oh, here we go with the sob story. Poor little rich boy Mark Wahlberg, just trying to survive. Rich boy? Mark's laugh was bitter and harsh. Lady, you have no idea what you're talking about. I was one of 9 kids in a broken home. My father left when I was 11. My mother worked multiple jobs just to keep food on the table. I was selling drugs and getting arrested before I was even a teenager. But sure, paint me as some privileged kid who just decided to be racist for fun. The other hosts were looking increasingly uncomfortable. Sarah was practically shrinking into her chair, and even Whoopi seemed at a loss for how to regain control of the situation. The cameras kept rolling, capturing every heated exchange. Joy wasn't finished. So your solution to poverty was to attack innocent people? Your solution to having a hard life was to make other people's lives harder? That's your defense? Mark slammed his hand on the table, making everyone jump. It's not a defense, it's context. Something you clearly don't understand. I'm not defending what I did, I'm explaining how I got there. There's a difference. But apparently, that's too nuanced for your simple worldview. The sound of Mark's hand hitting the table echoed through the studio like a gunshot. Joy's eyes widened for just a split second before that smug expression returned to her face, as if she had just proven her point about his violent tendencies. Simple worldview? Joy's voice was ice cold now. My worldview doesn't include beating up innocent people and then expecting a pat on the head 30 years later. My worldview doesn't include celebrating people who committed hate crimes just because they can act in movies now. Mark was breathing hard, his chest rising and falling as he tried to regain his composure. The other hosts looked like they wanted to disappear. Whoopi made another attempt to redirect the conversation. Look, maybe we should take a step back here and... No, Whoopi, Mark interrupted, his voice dangerously quiet. She wants to do this. Let's do this. Joy, you keep using the term hate crimes, but that's not what I was charged with. That's not what I was convicted of. You're throwing around legal terms that don't apply because it makes for better television, doesn't it? Joy shuffled through her notes again, pulling out a specific card. Assault and battery with a dangerous weapon. Criminal intimidation. And according to the police report, you used racial slurs during the attack. If that's not a hate crime, it's certainly hate adjacent. Hate adjacent? Mark laughed, but there was no humor in it. You're making up terms now? Listen. What I did was wrong. Period. But you sitting there trying to prosecute me for something I already paid for, something I've spent my entire adult life trying to make right. That's not justice, Joy. That's revenge. Joy leaned forward, her voice getting more aggressive. Paid for? You served 45 days in county jail. 45 days. Do you know what the average sentence is for assault with a deadly weapon? Do you know how much prison time most people get for what you did? What do you want from me? Mark's voice was rising again. You want me to go back in time and serve more time? You want me to stop making movies? You want me to crawl under a rock and never come out? What exactly would satisfy you, Joy? I want honesty, she shot back. I want you to stop pretending like you're some kind of redemption story. I want you to acknowledge that you got away with something that would have destroyed any regular person's life. Mark stood up abruptly, his chair rolling backward. The other hosts tensed, clearly worried about what might happen next. Security personnel near the edge of the set took a step forward. You want honesty? Here's your honesty, Mark said, pointing directly at Joy. You're absolutely right. I did get breaks that other people don't get. You know why? Because I worked my ass off every single day to earn them. Because I didn't just serve my time and forget about it. Because I've spent decades trying to give back to the community I hurt. Because I've hired hundreds of people from my old neighborhood and given them opportunities they never would have had otherwise. Joy wasn't intimidated by him standing. If anything, she seemed energized by it. Oh, so now you're a saint because you hired some people? That makes up for the violence? That makes up for the trauma you caused? I never said I was a saint. Mark's voice boomed through the studio. I've never claimed to be perfect or even good, but I've tried to be better, and that has to count for something. Or are you saying that people can never change? Are you saying that someone who makes a mistake as a teenager should be punished forever? I'm saying that actions have consequences, Joy replied coldly. And I'm saying that being rich and famous shouldn't protect you from those consequences. Mark started pacing behind his chair, his hands running through his hair. Protect me, lady? I get reminded of what I did every single day. Every interview, every article, every time someone Googles my name. You think I've forgotten? You think I don't carry this with me everywhere I go? Good, Joy said simply. You should carry it. Your victims carry their scars forever, so why shouldn't you carry the guilt? That stopped Mark in his tracks. He turned to face her directly, his face flushed with anger. You know what? You're right about one thing. I should carry it. And I do. But there's a difference between carrying guilt and being destroyed by it. There's a difference between acknowledging your past and letting it define your entire future. Joy crossed her arms, clearly not backing down. And there's a difference between redemption and just getting lucky. Which one do you think applies to you? I think you've already made up your mind about that, Mark said, his voice getting quieter but more intense. I think you walked into this interview with your agenda already set. You didn't want to hear about my movie. You didn't want to have a conversation about second chances or personal growth. You wanted to ambush me on live television to score points with your audience. Joy's mask finally slipped a little, and her voice got defensive. I wanted to hold you accountable for something that everyone else seems willing to just sweep under the rug. Accountable to who? Mark demanded. To you? Who made you the judge and jury of my life? Who gave you the right to decide whether I've done enough to earn forgiveness? The public has that right? Joy shot back. When you put yourself out there as a public figure, when you make millions of dollars based on your image, the public has the right to question that image. Mark sat back down, but he was still visibly agitated, his leg bouncing under the table. The public, or just you? Because last I checked, the public has been pretty forgiving. They've supported my movies, they've supported my businesses, they've supported the charities I work with, so maybe this isn't about the public at all. Maybe this is about Joy Behar wanting to take down someone she doesn't like. Don't you dare make this personal. Joy snapped, her professional composure finally cracking. This isn't about me not liking you. This is about principles. This is about not letting people buy their way out of consequences. Buy my way out? Mark's laugh was harsh. You think money erased what I did? You think success magically made it okay? Every single day I wake up knowing that I hurt someone. Every single day I try to do something positive to balance out that negative. That's not buying my way out, that's called living with responsibility. Sarah Haynes finally found her voice, trying desperately to redirect the conversation. Mark, maybe you could tell us about some of the charitable work you do. No, Joy interrupted sharply. We're not done here. I want to know why you think your charitable work somehow absolves you of your crimes. Mark's eyes flashed with renewed anger. I never said it absolves me of anything. But you're sitting there acting like I've done nothing but coast on my past mistakes. You're ignoring everything I've tried to do to make things right. Because it's not enough, Joy said bluntly. It's never going to be enough. You can build 1,000 schools, you can hire 1 million people, but that man still can't see properly out of one eye because of what you did to him. The studio fell completely silent. Even the camera operators seemed to be holding their breath. Mark stared at Joy for a long moment, his jaw working as he tried to control his temper. The silence stretched on for what felt like an eternity. Mark's face had gone from red to pale, and his hands were trembling slightly as he processed Joy's words about the permanent damage to his victim's eye. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. but it carried more weight than all his previous shouting. "You know what the difference is between you and me, Joy?" Mark said, his eyes never leaving hers. "I know I'm not a good person. I've never pretended to be. But you sit there with your moral superiority tearing people down on television, and you think that makes you righteous." Joy opened her mouth to respond, but Mark held up a hand, his voice growing stronger. "No, you've had your turn to talk. Now it's mine. You want to know about that man's eye? You want to know about the damage I caused? I think about it every single day. I see his face in my nightmares. But you know what else I know? I know that he and I have found a way to move forward together, something you clearly can't understand." Joy's expression had hardened again. "Move forward? Is that what you call it when you meet with your victim for a photo opportunity?" "Photo opportunity?" Mark's voice exploded through the studio again. "Are you out of your mind? There were no cameras when I met with Johnny Trin. There were no reporters, no publicists, no nothing. It was just two human beings trying to heal from something terrible that happened decades ago." He stood up again, but this time his movements were more controlled, more deliberate. "You want to know what he said to me? He said that holding on to anger was poisoning his own life. He said that forgiveness wasn't about me deserving it, it was about him choosing peace over hatred. But apparently, you know better than the actual victim about what's right and wrong." Joy wasn't backing down. "One victim forgiving you doesn't erase all the other harm you caused. What about the other people you attacked? What about the broader community you terrorized?" Mark's laugh was bitter and exhausted. "Terrorized? You're really going to sit there and act like I was some kind of serial killer? I was a screwed-up kid who got in fights. I wasn't running some campaign of terror against entire communities. Violence motivated by racial hatred is terrorism," Joy said coldly. "Call it what it island." "You know what?" Mark said, his voice suddenly calm in a way that was somehow more frightening than his anger. "You're right. What I did was terrible. It was inexcusable. It was motivated by ignorance and hatred and stupidity. Are you happy now? Is that what you wanted to hear?" Joy looked momentarily surprised by his sudden shift in tone. "I wanted honesty." "Well, here's some more honesty for you," Mark continued, his voice getting sharper. "You've spent this entire interview trying to destroy me on live television. You've attacked my character, questioned my motives, dismissed my efforts to make amends, and basically called me a lying racist who's never really changed. And you know what the ironic thing is? You've shown more hatred and malice in the last 20 minutes than I've shown in the last 20 years. The accusation hit like a physical blow. Joy's face flushed red, and for the first time in the interview, she looked genuinely shaken. "How dare you compare what I'm doing to what you did? I'm holding you accountable." "No," Mark said, pointing at her again. "You're bullying me." "There's a difference. Accountability would be asking tough questions and actually listening to the answers. What you're doing is just public humiliation for your own entertainment." Joy stood up now, matching his posture. "I don't have to listen to this from someone who—" "Who what?" Mark interrupted. "Who made mistakes? Who's tried to do better? Who's actually taken responsibility for his actions, instead of just pointing fingers at other people?" "Yeah, you're right, you don't have to listen to that." Whoopi finally found her voice again, desperation clear in her tone. "Okay. I think we need to take a commercial break." "No," both Mark and Joy said simultaneously, then glared at each other. Mark continued, his voice rising to a crescendo. "You want to know what really bothers me about this, Joy? It's not that you're bringing up my past. It's not that you're asking hard questions. It's that you're doing it with such obvious glee. You're enjoying this. You're getting off on trying to make me look bad on television." Joy's voice was shaking with rage now. "I'm trying to make sure that people understand that actions have consequences, that you can't just—" "Consequences?" Mark exploded. "Lady, I've been dealing with the consequences of my actions for 30 years. Every job interview, every relationship, every time I look in the mirror. But apparently, that's not enough for you. Apparently, you won't be satisfied until I'm completely destroyed. Maybe that's what you deserve." Joy shot back, and the words hung in the air like a challenge. Mark stared at her for a long moment, then slowly shook his head. You know what? Maybe you're right. Maybe I do deserve to be destroyed. Maybe I deserve to have my life ruined and my career ended, and my family humiliated. But you know what I don't deserve? I don't deserve to be attacked by someone who's supposed to be a professional journalist but who's acting like a schoolyard bully. He started walking toward the edge of the set, clearly done with the interview. You want to know the truth about redemption, Joy? It's not about other people forgiving you. It's about learning to live with what you've done and trying to be better despite it. But some people, apparently, would rather keep everyone trapped in their worst moments forever. Joy called after him, her voice desperate now that she was losing control of the situation. Running away doesn't change what you did. Mark stopped and turned back, his voice carrying across the studio with crystal clarity. I'm not running away from what I did. I'm running away from what you're doing. There's a difference, but I don't expect you to understand it. Security moved closer as the tension reached its peak. The other hosts looked mortified. The audience was completely silent, and the cameras captured every moment of the breakdown. Joy made one final attempt to regain control. This is exactly the kind of behavior I was talking about. This is exactly why people like you shouldn't be celebrated. Mark paused at the edge of the set, his hand on his microphone. People like me? You mean people who've made mistakes and tried to learn from them? People who've worked to become better than they were? Yeah, you're right, Joy. Heaven forbid we celebrate people who've actually grown and changed. Much better to celebrate people who just sit in judgment of everyone else. He unclipped his microphone and set it down on a nearby table. Good luck with the rest of your show. I hope your audience got the entertainment they were looking for. As Mark walked off the set, Joy stood there looking stunned, clearly not having expected the interview to spiral so completely out of control. The other hosts sat in uncomfortable silence, and Whoopi finally managed to say, "We'll be right back after this commercial break." The cameras kept rolling for a few more seconds, capturing Joy's face as she realized that her aggressive tactics had backfired spectacularly. She had wanted to expose Mark Wahlberg as an unreformed criminal, but instead, she had exposed herself as someone willing to use a television platform to publicly humiliate a guest. And there you have it, one of the most explosive confrontations in daytime television history. What started as a routine promotional interview turned into a